everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, Nikita, we can see it.
Okay, let's get started. So let me introduce myself. I am Nikita Pohrebniak. I work at Imagex in Canada as a software development manager. And today we are going to talk about the Acquia BLT and how it can speed up the project setup, the development and deployment processes. So, like I said, I'm working at Imagex company, which was founded at 2001 and has successfully launched more than 500 web initiatives. It has offices around the world, mostly in Vancouver, Kelowna, and Kiev. We have more than 70 full-time web specialists, including the dedicated design and UX team, SEO and digital marketing teams, and of course, the developers. The global offices provide the broad time zone coverage, so we are available more than 20 hours a day, and we have all the highest rated customer satisfaction score globally for the web agencies at clutch.co. And we have been focusing on higher education division with specialized project team. We have employees working and teaching at such universities as UBC and SFU. And finally, we have such big clients as Stanford University, University of Arizona, Stanislaus, Trinity University, the YMCA centers, and many more others. So let's begin. So today I wanted to talk about the BLT tool and why we decided to use it, what were the problems that we faced and were trying to solve. And we are going to look at the main features that this tool has, as well for both developers and the technical architects and the lead devs. And finally, we will talk about how we can extend that if it's needed for your team. So, as you all may know, every development team or company uses quite a few different tools for their development and deployment processes. However, when the company starts growing, it hires a lot of new developers, lead developers, technical architects, and so on and so forth. And as you may know, all these people come from other different agencies that has different technical standards of deploying codes, and so on and so forth. So having that said, you normally face with the issues that you cannot, let's say, control all the teams and all the lead developers and their processes properly unless you have the company-wide standards set. So we were thinking of how we could or what we could use to standardize all those processes, because many projects were hosted on different hosting platforms such as Platform SH, Pantheon, Acquia Cloud, Linode, self-hosted, and so on and so forth. Aside from that, like I said, as we had multiple offices around the world, the teams were distributed, and that meant that developer couldn't get a proper advice immediately when they faced a particular issue with the project or in the development or in the deployment process. And yeah, we decided to come up with some certain standards to resolve the majority of those issues. So what were our requirements? So first of all, we wanted to come up with some kind of the boilerplate project, with Doxal in mind, because that was our VM tool of choice. Then we wanted to constantly check the coding standards whenever a developer wants to commit his code or push, and we wanted to make sure that it corresponds to Drupal coding standards. Next, we wanted to run the tests on the project, both during the development process and during the build before the code gets pushed to the server. The next requirement was to come up with the build script for Bitbucket pipelines so that we have a standardized building and deploying process for most of the projects. And finally, we wanted to make everyone happy and save some time for like on all of these processes. So after we have done some research on the existing tools, we decided to try Acquia BLT, which stands for Build and Launch Tool. And that's basically why. So here are the main features that can be used for both developers and technical architects. So for the developers, you can install or reinstall your Drupal instance. You can also add the Git hooks. You can pull the database and files from the remote, and it can be like the remote settings can be managed within a single file. You can build front-end assets. You can run the tests, and finally, you can make the coffee if you want to, and if you can create this custom command that would connect to your coffee machine, let's say. And for the technical architects, so this tool is able to add Drupal VM out of the box to your project, and with using additional plugins, you can also add such tools as Doxal, DDev, and I believe some others, but I haven't checked the latest list of the available plugins. Next, it can generate the multi-site file structure. It can generate the config splits. It also can add the default CI configuration for your project, and it can build and deploy the artifacts. And it also has many more useful features that we will look at shortly. So let's take a look at all these features in the detail. So what it can bring for the developers: install and reinstall the Drupal. So by using those two BLT commands, first you will need to run the BLT source build that will generate the default behat structure. It will install all the composer dependencies of your project. Then the BLT will add or clone the Git hooks to your project. And finally, it will initialize the settings and build all the front-end assets. After that, you're free to run BLT Drupal install, which will finalize your Drupal installation or on your local machine. And as you can see, that's the code of this build command, which is basically a PHP code, and it's quite straightforward. So another issue that we've solved with BLT is the Git hooks. Previously, we were sharing it across the projects, and we were trying to make sure that every developer has them installed on the project that they are working on. But BLT made it even easier, because it has the BLT init Git hooks command under the hood that would add pre-commit and I believe pre-push commands, and as well as commit MSG that will check or perform twig, YAML, and PHP code sniffer tests against your code. And finally, it will check whether your commit message corresponds to the standard that you've set. For example, in here, you can see that we've set a 3-letter index that actually corresponds to the Jira ticket with the number. And after that, we're expecting not less than 15 symbols of the commit message. Otherwise, it will show you that the commit message is invalid and you should rewrite it. So let's move on. The next thing that BLT allows to do is it gives an easy way to pull the database and both private and public files from the remote. And again, the only thing that you need to have is properly installed Drush aliases, as well as you need to set the remote where you want to get those files and database from. Here is an example from the blt.yaml file that contains all the settings for your project. As you can see, there is a Drush aliases explain that we would like to work with the production environment or production Drush alias, and for the local we will use self, and the default alias will be local, the local one. So BLT has 4 commands. The first one, sync default site, that would import the database, it will import files, and I believe that it also runs the composer install, as well as it imports the configuration. Or you can use all those commands separately. For example, if you just want to import the database or synchronize files from the remote and so on and so forth. So the next cool feature is you can build and or compile your front-end assets, and it actually can be used both during the development and the deployment process based on your configuration. So in here, we have 3 commands. First, we'll set or compile all the requirements or install the dependencies if you have ones. And then the second command, BLT source build front-end assets, will compile them if you have the script. And as you can see from the listing, you can customize this command and run your custom code for it. And finally, the third command will just run both hooks, the requisites, and compile the front-end assets. And the topic that we've already heard from Valerie before is you can run tests easily using BLT. It has quite a few commands to do that. The first one will obviously run all the tests that are available and that are supported by BLT, or you can run separately one of the tests. For example, you can run only PHP unit tests, or you can run the Behat tests. You can check whether the front-end tests are working properly. You can validate your composer JSON file. You can run PHP code sniffer against the code base. You can check whether your tweak files haven't any errors. And to give a little bit more details, you can, if you've created custom tweak commands, you can also add them to blt.yaml file and say that this command is safe and it will not generate an error in this case. And finally, you can validate your YAML files, as well as you can run the security or check the security updates, whether you have any and whether you need to apply any of them. Let's move on. So another issue that we were trying to solve with this tool was to standardize work for the lead developers, so that every project has similar settings, similar requirements, similar standards of deployment, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that BLT has out of the box, like I mentioned before, is it can add Drupal VM to your project with the default settings for Vagrant. As you can see here, it will add all, like the host name, the machine name. It will add the IP address. It will specify where you are getting the Vagrant box from. It will give the site name, and it will add quite a few more other settings to the project. Aside from that, as BLT is like work with the plugins, you can also create your custom plugin for the tool of your choice. For example, we used one of the available plugins. I don't remember the name of the contributor, but as we're using Doxal, we added Doxal plugin to all our projects. The next thing is that if the project is a multi-site, you can generate the multi-site file structure for the project. And here you can see what it does. So first it will generate the structure to your Docker sites directory. It will ask for the machine name of your subsite. It will specify the local domain. It would ask if you would need to customize the local database credentials. It can customize or add the drush alias for the remote and for your local. And finally, it will initialize the settings for your subsite. The next cool feature that can be added by the lead developers using the BLT is you can initialize the config splits, which is widely used on our projects. And it saves quite a lot of time, to be honest, when you can just simply run one command. And what it does is it simply makes the directories in your config folder for 5 default environments: the local, the CI, dev, stage, and prod, as well as it adds the default files for needed for each of those environments. And the next feature is, like I mentioned before, you can generate the default continuous integration configuration file for the tool of your choice. Out of the box, BLT supports GitLab, Acquia pipelines, Probo, and Travis CI. And you will need to run those 4 commands respectively to generate the configuration file. As an example, I'm not sure if you can see that the font size is quite small, but here's an example of the GitLab command or the configuration file that will be generated by using the proper command. And again, if you have a different tool of choice, for example, our company uses Bitbucket pipelines, we came up with our custom configuration file and the plugin for BLT, and we're currently using it on every project. So basically, when the lead developer creates a project, all they need to do to add the CI configuration is to run this custom command, and it will add the Bitbucket pipelines.yaml file to your code base. So the next cool feature is BLT can build or deploy your artifact. And as you can see from the listing provided, it will use the aliases where you would like to deploy it, as well as you can specify the artifact message, the branch again, and let me quickly update the I'm not sure why it didn't update, but there was a different code added to this slide. But like I said, it will simply generate the Git artifact and then deploy it to your server. And finally, there is a list of additional cool features that are available out of the box. For example, if you need a SAML integration, you can run the BLT recipes simple SAML PHP init command, and it will add the default configuration for it. As well as if you're using Acquia Cloud Site Factory, by using this command, it will add all the additional folders and configs to support the Acquia Cloud Site Factory, as well as it, as far as I remember, it adds hooks for Site Factory as well as Acquia Cloud. Also, it can initialize your Acquia aliases. And finally, if you have the code beautifier configured, it can also fix the some of PHP standards if you run BLT source fix PHP standards. So let's move on. If that's not enough for your team, like it was in our case, because we wanted to automate some additional things, as well as we wanted to extend the default functionality, we needed to create some custom commands. So Acquia BLT is built with Robo PHP library and the annotated command that basically allows you to create custom commands for BLT using PHP code and quite straightforward syntax. As well as it supports, like I said, defining new custom commands. It allows hooking into the existing commands, not only custom, but the default ones. It allows you to replace or override a Robo or BLT command using the replace hook command hook. And as it's built using the annotated command library, it has a very long list of different hooks that you can use out of the box as well. And finally, you can disable any command that is built into the BLT or any of the customly created commands. So let's look at all these items a little bit in detail. So first of all, if you want to generate a new command, there is a BLT built-in command that will create a new PHP file with the example command class that will, out of the box, it will contain the simple method that would say hello world into the console. And additional thing that it does is it adds the free command event hook. And let's look at it a little bit in the details. So if you want to create a custom command, you will need to specify the command name using @command annotation. And then you just need to provide your code using the Robo syntax. In this case, like I said, it will just print hello world in your console. As I mentioned before, you can hook into the existing command, and I showed how we can hook into the like this example command that we created before. So all you will need to do is to add the annotation that says what type of hook you're adding and what command you would like to use this hook to. So in here, for example, first we get the command name, and then we are printing to the console that we are running the hook to this exact command. The next feature allows you to replace or override any of the existing BLT commands. And here I showed how we can customize or override the previously created custom hello command. So in here you can see that we've created a hook, which is called replace command, and it replaces the custom hello command in here. And basically it will just, instead of showing hello world, it will say goodbye world. And finally, you can disable any commands that you need. For example, if you don't want the developers to mess with any available commands other than you would like them to use, all you need to do is to specify all those commands in the blt.yaml file. For example, in here, I said that I don't want to use the custom hello command. And as you can see, I ran it in the terminal, and what I received is that it said that the custom hello command is disabled. So to summarize, like I said, the majority of the issues that we faced with at the very beginning, we were able to solve with BLT because it allowed us to combine all the available tools into a single one. And we didn't need from developers to know like a lot of different tools to perform the daily actions against the projects, as well as we were able to like inject particular coding standards or make sure that the code that the developers commit and push to the code base correspond the coding standards, as well as we configured the CI script, we were running the tests during the build, as well as the developers were able to run the tests against their code while as they write their code. And finally, using the Git hooks, we made sure that when the developer tries to commit their code, the Git hook would run those tests and warn them that they have some issues with their code. So that's basically it. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Nikita. And actually, yes, we have one question from Dmitry Bazinov. Let me know if you see it or you want me to read it for you.
It is better if you read it yourself because it's really long.
Okay, let me try. I cannot find the proper window.
It chat in the right bottom corner of the application.
Oh, it was hidden.
Read it for us too.
Okay, Dmitry Buzinov. Hi, Dmitry. What about the deployment to the cloud? Let's say I need to deploy my Drupal app to Azure, Amazon, AWS, Google Cloud. Let's say we need to build a Docker image and push it to Cloud Repo. How the flow will be changed in this case? Is BLT ready to use in this case, or we should write our own script to do that? So like I said, BLT is quite flexible and you can customize all its available feature. But what you can do out of the box is you can specify what you want to, which actions you want to perform before you deploy your code to the server. For example, if you need to build certain assets, front-end assets, and if you want to exclude particular parts of your projects, everything can be done by simply using the blt.yaml file and customizing all the default settings. And as far as I remember, you will just need to specify the Git remote of your project where you would like to deploy that code. And as I showed before, you can build the Git artifact and then deploy to any server of your choice. Does it answer your question?
Well, Dmitry is silent, but we have another question from Yuri Senin. Nikita, please read it also to everyone and
Sure.
give an answer.
Hi, Yuri. Hi, are we able to have different settings for BLT depend on the environment? Do you mean the settings.php or which part? Oh, for BLT, depend on the environment. Again, what kind of environment do you mean? Like the local environment?
Yeah, something like local or production, or maybe different servers.
So, like I said, BLT is mostly a tool that will be used during the development or deployment process. So we are currently not using it on this server. But what you can do is you can specify any additional settings for each of your available environments. And based on the environment that you're trying to push your code or you're building the code base for, you can customize all the steps that you would like to perform for this particular environment.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.